is January 1959, and Havana is trembling with noise. Cars honk, flags wave from balconies, and men in olive uniforms ride into the city on jeeps covered in dust from the mountains. The dictator Fulgencio Batista fled the island just hours before dawn, leaving behind his palaces, his generals, and the fear that once ruled every street. Now, people pour into the plazas shouting "Viva Fidel" and "Libertad" until their voices go hoarse. The revolution has won. But under the cheers, another feeling begins to take hold, a hunger for reckoning. For 7 years, Batista's soldiers had beaten, shot, and disappeared thousands across the island, in towns like Santiago and Bayamo. Families still search for bodies that were never found. Everyone knows the names of the men who carried out the killings, and now, for the first time, they will face the crowd instead of commanding it. In the government buildings newly claimed by the rebels, typewriters clatter through the night as lists of suspected war criminals are drawn up. Trucks begin arriving in Havana, carrying captured officers in handcuffs and torn uniforms. They will be tried publicly, the new leaders say, so that Cuba can finally see justice. Among them is one man whose name the crowd shouts louder than any other: Colonel Jesús Sosa Blanco. Jesús Sosa Blanco had once been one of Batista's most trusted officers. A colonel in the army, he commanded troops in the eastern provinces where the revolution had first begun. To the rebels, his name was a curse, whispered alongside stories of executions carried out in small villages, of bodies left in the road as warnings, of prisoners thrown from cliffs in the Sierra Maestra. Survivors said his men came at night, dragging people from their homes before setting them on fire.
Crimes hearing. Rarely have newsreel cameras recorded such dramatic scenes in so explosive a setting. Major Sosa Blanco, 51, was accused of murder, torture.
For years, Sosa Blanco had acted with total confidence, believing that the dictatorship would last forever. He was known for his fine suits, his sharp moustache, and the pistol he wore even at parties. When Batista's regime collapsed, he tried to hide among the crowds leaving Havana, but the people recognized him almost instantly. He was dragged from a car, beaten, and handed over to rebel soldiers shouting "asesino," which means murderer, as they pushed him toward a waiting truck. Now, in the first days of the new Cuba, he becomes more than a prisoner. He becomes a symbol. Newspapers call him the Butcher of Oriente. On radio broadcasts, his crimes are described in detail, and the public demands to see him tried in public. To them, Sosa Blanco isn't just one man. He's the embodiment of everything the revolution fought to destroy. And so, when the government announces that his trial will be open to the public, thousands of Cubans prepare to witness it, not in a courtroom, but in a place built for spectacle. It's January 1959. The Sports Palace in Havana is packed to capacity. Tens of thousands have come to witness what the new government calls a public trial. Some were brought in by bus from nearby factories, others by military trucks from the countryside. Down on the arena floor, where basketball games were once played, a single wooden table stands beneath blinding floodlights. Behind it, a panel of young officers in green uniforms, members of the Revolutionary Tribunal. Beside them sits the accused, Colonel Jesús Sosa Blanco. His uniform is wrinkled, his face bruised, his hands tied in front of him. It's deafening inside. Microphones crackle as witnesses take turns shouting into them. A mother describes how soldiers under Sosa Blanco killed her son. Another witness, a boy, took the stand and accused Blanco of killing his father. Each statement is met with thunderous applause and chants from the stands. Reporters lean over the railing to capture every word. When Sosa Blanco finally speaks, his voice is barely audible. He says he only followed orders, that he never killed anyone himself, but every attempt to defend himself is drowned out by shouting. On the balcony above, a group of soldiers grins as they pound their fists against the railing. Sosa Blanco stays mostly still, though at moments He smiles faintly, almost mocking. When the noise becomes unbearable, he laughs and raises his voice above the crowd. "This is the Colosseum in Rome," he says. "I met brave rebels in the mountains, not types like you here. All you do is talk." The remark draws a storm of rage from the stands. His defense is brief. His lawyer doesn't argue the facts. He only claims that the crimes took place before the new government had reinstated capital punishment, and that his client was a soldier following orders. No one listens. When the tribunal rises to deliver its verdict, the crowd already knows what it will be: guilty. The words echo through the loudspeakers as the building explodes with cheers. The sentence is death by firing squad to be carried out immediately. Sosa Blanco kisses his wife one last time before his execution. The trial has come to an end, and Sosa Blanco is taken inside the old Spanish fortress of La Cabaña. Floodlights burn against the stone walls, cutting through the mist. Soldiers move quietly across the courtyard, their boots scraping against the cobblestones. Colonel Jesús Sosa Blanco is brought out just before dawn. His face is pale, his eyes fixed straight ahead. A priest walks beside him, murmuring prayers that no one can hear over the wind. He's placed before a wall chipped by hundreds of bullets from the weeks before. A firing squad of young rebels takes position opposite him, rifles loaded and raised. For a brief moment, everything is still. Some say he shouted "Viva Cuba." Others claim he cursed the men about to shoot him. No one agrees on his last words. The command is given. The shots ring out, echoing across the bay and over the still sleeping city. When the smoke clears, the body slumps against the wall, then falls to the ground. Outside the fortress, a small crowd breaks into cheers. In the hours after the shots, the city felt cleansed. A raw and immediate relief that someone who had embodied years of cruelty was finally gone. For the families who had named their dead aloud from the stadium floor, the execution was a closure as visceral as any funeral could be. A public sealing of grief into something they could point at and call justice. It was catharsis rendered in concrete and gunfire, but catharsis has a cost. By firing on a man in uniform before the trappings of ordinary law could be restored, the revolution set a precedent. The people's will, voiced in stadiums and broadcast on radio, could substitute for courts. That substitution solved a political problem. It satisfied rage and broke the old officer class's aura of invulnerability while creating a legal one. When the instruments of judgment answer to the crowd rather than to written procedure, mercy, dissent, and future dissenters all grow more precarious. Politically, the execution was a demonstration of power as much as of justice. It told allies and enemies alike that the new order would act quickly, publicly, and without hesitation. The spectacle reassured some revolutionaries that the purge of the past could be thorough. It warned others, including diplomats, businessmen, and intellectuals, that the price of resistance might now be immediate and total. The message cut both ways. It rallied supporters and narrowed the space for disagreement. By sunrise, word of the execution is everywhere. Radios across Havana announce that Colonel Jesús Sosa Blanco has been shot at La Cabaña fortress. Crowds gather in the streets, some cheering, others whispering. For many, it feels like justice, a symbol that the old regime is finally gone. For others, it feels like something else, something harder to name. In the following days, more officers are brought to trial. The same stadium fills again and again, the same chants echoing from the stands. Some trials last hours, others only minutes. The firing squads at La Cabaña work through the night, their gunfire carrying over the bay toward the city. The revolution moves quickly, determined to cleanse itself of the past. But abroad, the reactions are different. Foreign journalists describe the trials as chaotic, driven more by fury than law. Newspapers call them justice by crowd. When asked about it, Fidel Castro defends the tribunals on national television, saying that the people have the right to judge their oppressors. Revolutionary justice, he says, is not the same as the justice of the past. Still, even among the victors, a quiet unease begins to spread. The cheering in the stadiums grows fainter. The faces in the crowds are less certain. What began as the triumph of a people now carries the weight of something darker, a warning of how easily liberation can turn into fear. In the end, Sosa Blanco's trial becomes more than the story of one man. It marks the beginning of a new kind of power in Cuba, one that promises freedom but demands obedience. And in the years that follow, the echoes of those first gunshots at La Cabaña will never fully fade.